I'm going to keep coming back to this guy Rene Descartes. When he said, "I think, therefore I am," you've got that "therefore" in the two phrases. Yeah, I think, I am. Basically, what he's saying is that in terms of he can conceive everything, and that's what the word is first conceptions. Yeah, which we call pure thought. But he got it wrong. I mean, Darwin came along 200 years later, and he got it wrong. It's not. Being comes before thought. Indeed, if you wanted to stretch that term, you'd have to find out if there was something that enabled life to kick off and from the primordial soup to where we are today. Survivors of that whole primordial soup, and we're sitting here. But when he said that, Darwin's theory would flip it. But having said that, Descartes stands part of his internal paradigm. I'm taking this in the Kuhnian sense, as beliefs everything in his world that he believes to be true. He's got this existing paradigm that rests on the assumption that, in part, and here's the assumption that man is put on this earth as special, yeah, and that's a big deal. It's anthropocentrism, in that man has a special place in the world, yeah. But now, 400 years later, we've got the universe now, because the universe is opening up. Copernicus opened it up, and provided the Copernican principle, where we said that man is not as special as we thought. So, that's a big, huge shake to the absolute authority that the Roman Catholic Church had at that time. You see, the problem with Descartes is that before 1666 or whatever like that, before that, everything in the world, yeah, in so far as the Western Roman Catholic Church, they'd split in 1050. It was a big schism in 1050, and then you had Byzantium and what have you. But the whole thing is that if anything that happens in this world, and they've got absolute authority, yeah, is God's will. So the picture is that everything that happens in God's will, and then along comes science and starts upsetting things and what have you. You've got the Copernican principle that says we're not so special, and the Roman Catholicism relies on us being special. So Roman Catholic, the Copernican principle. So, but basically, if you look at what we've got now, we don't reason. I mean, Napoleon was the one that says, no, he took the crown, and rather than allow the Pope to put place on him, making him emperor, he didn't. He took it himself. Boom, self-authorship. I think I am the emperor, therefore I am the emperor, without any regard to any sort of, even the semblance of, hubris or whatever like that, to let's say something that might exist above him. Yeah. But now that you got Darwin, you would say we can flip things around in the evolutionary theory, yeah? Not so. When Kuhn is talking about paradigm to paradigm, if you've got an old paradigm and you've got a new paradigm, there's a lag. Now you'd expect that when Darwin kicks in, that lag would have been exhausted by now and everybody was on board with evolution. Not so. You have that problem that I think, therefore I am, and that already kicked out any notion of progressing on the basis of God's will and what have you. So we've got reason and science has got to explain everything that was explained with God's will. Why is this fluttering here? Why is that? Every single thing, including conduct of man. But Thomas Hobbes does a workaround for that, which I'll explain later on. But it doesn't fill that gap, because you've got reason and science, and with France taking off the hat and just sort of self-authorship, they're going to put their constitution on the basis of reason, because Napoleon is saying, say goodbye to your little friend, meaning God of, that God of which the Roman Catholic Church is just one type of machine in order to get, like, don't forget you've got the Orthodox churches as well, you got those, and then you got the Islamic faith and whatever like that. So basically he's saying, no, forget it. Reason is the way forward. What happens is, you'd think that with Darwin, the things would have flipped around. We said being comes, and then we actually have to look at what is being. Yeah, no, not so, because what certain, I don't know if Neoplatonism is the word to say, but that kicks off, and that just, and those ideals that exist in perpetuity. And once you create them, but these guys, because they can say I think therefore I am, they go off and make a state. Now, if you take the state of Florence, it's got an observable field. You can actually see that there's some sort of thing that marks it out from something else. But you extend that into a country, it's an entirely different thing. Aristotle said a king for a country, a state for a city, and an emperor for many countries. That's the way Aristotle said. But no, we're going to extend this right out over a huge mass, and we're going to normatize the whole language, all the Occitan, Brittany, the whole lot. We're going to have one normative language. A similar thing is happening in the UK, not the UK, with Henry VIII around about that time. Yeah, I mean, I know it came a little bit before, but they're breaking the wardship into fields. How that translates in Ireland is through the penal laws, but the penal laws are an entirely separate thing. Because you've got the fields coming in, everybody must have this normative King's English, or whatever the case may be, whatever. But moving on, it hasn't fulfilled that role. There's no way that what the reason on its own can actually is sufficient. The Mark Carneys and the Clintons and the EU boards might think that they can proceed on the basis of reason, but that's not good. That's not, because basically that's just like I said before with the Descartes, I think therefore I am, that is a blank check with no checks and balances from any existential thing. The very fact that you can create non-natural legal persons, is a fucking joke. It's an entire joke. These are called corporations, that you can create, so that as a person, yeah, what distinguishes me from a person and a company, yeah, is the fact that is a legal person by law. I am a person by existence, in my view, because person, perfect, perceive, perpetual and what have you like that. Because a person, big world or universe, whatever, the father, person, a bit of this light going out. But what happened in 800 with Charlemagne, when he's cracked in to be the Holy Roman Emperor, basically he's going to look after the persons, while the other guys are going to look after the ghost bit, the spiritual bit. You know what I mean? Now I know it's one and the same, but I don't want to draw those distinctions between church and state, because all that type of narrative is really too derivative for me. You've just got to look at it really on the base, on a really primitive level, and we'll come into when we can talk about cause when having causation. That you'd have to get a lot more primitive, In fact, it's a bit hurtful, because some of the logic, the Aristotle's syllogisms that were actually translated by that were assumed and taken in, worked on by the Vienna Circle, these logical positivists, assumed that they could take the universe, take the whole thing, and actually put it out across as a technique. And that is just total bollocks. It's just bullshit. To be able to take to any aspect of the universe and assume that the words that you say are representative of what's in another person's head related to that is just total nonsense, particularly on issues like that. Hence, if you're talking in terms of ideals, what about the black position, or what about the white position, or the Chinese position, you're talking in terms of, you're not talking about individuals, you're talking about some fucking imaginary idea that in your head as to what a Russian is, or what a black is, or a Chinese. I really don't mean any disrespect. I'm an Irishman, but obviously what Irish do, no matter where he's, we're going to have some ideas as to what that culture one might bring to the table, But I have to say that this Germanic type of ideas that came out, that sprung out of Immanuel Kant, and the other and Descartes, if you put a medical doctor in there, any doctor in there, to look at these guys, the first one's a narcissist and the second one is on the spectrum. Read the stuff, read in between the lines. Because there's nothing about emotion, nothing about desire, nothing about the human condition in this. It's all about thought. And your thought has got to be better than the thought that went before. Because the thought that went before was God, and everything was God's will, and there's a lot of fucking superstition and all that crack, But generally there's an existence, yeah? So when you couch it as God or whatever, some people during the Council of Nicaea, I think it was intimated that there is a separate creator, yeah? demiurge or whatever like that. That kicks in when Hobbes and all that law involved it, and they're all trying to flip this, to make a deterministic world. Because if you could go, everything happens to God's will, and you're going to replace that, you've got to replace it with something which is design in it. Yeah, you've got to go on the basis that this world that we live in is deterministic. We can know what it is. Number one is deterministic. The second thing is that us, special species, anthropic principles, everything, that we have the language and the capability to say what that world is. And we do that a lot with Lego, mechanical, mathematical pieces of Lego, That's all we do with it. Just bits of things. And if you say that, this theory fits with this theory, yeah, it's all the same. It's all the same. It's just Lego. Now I know I'm being very overly simplistic here, but the thing is, if I want to introduce a banana into this equation, I mean, you can't get it, because banana doesn't fit with Lego, okay? But that's rather like me saying, let's say you've got the theory of everything, the singularity, the Big Bang, you've got E is equal to, you've got the energy equivalence formulation, you've got the whole fucking lot, yeah? You've got all these things, you're going to make a theory of everything, string theory and the whole lot, yeah? But that still doesn't explain why that woman is lying there with her kids' brains all over in Gaza. Does that make sense? Because that is really where the theory of everything is. All this bollocks relies on one percept, one concept. When I explain it to you, it might be a bit silly. If I put that in front of you, I don't know if it's reading, but it says cat. You know what a cat is when you look at it, yeah? Okay, you know what a cat is. If I ask you what dog, yeah? You know what that word thing, because you have something in the word that you can refer to, yeah? Because you're taught that, yeah? It's just phenomenal, but we've got these names that we give to everything. It's doing this, doing this. We've got names, then you go into quanta, it's just names. I still don't know what it is. I don't know what tree is. I don't know what rivers are. I have no idea. The minute I start looking at that substance, I break it out. H2O down to its bit. Now down to oxygen. Where do we go? What is it? Atoms? I keep going. More fermions, quarks, the whole lot. Way down. It's just names. Because you lose your reference. You lose references, then you go into quantum stuff. I think there's a measurement problem. And yeah, there's a anyway. So that's it, really. I think that's all I've got for at the moment. So you end up, and you really can't budge. You think that the evolution model will start kicking in some respects, but no, you've got Neoplatism, I think, kicking back there that are making these ideas that don't fucking work. The only reason those laws of the universe work is because they've got to include what was originally just a reference system. For these guys in the Islamic Golden Age, just 0 to 1, 1 to 2, when they're doing their geometrics. But you would take that into the Dark Ages Europe, with heavy canonical and bishopric power and what have you like this, and God and all this kind of absolute authority, and you take that into there. They're going to read this in a different way. They say, no, we don't want this, we want something else. And in order to explain their laws of the universe, you've got to take something for which reason has nothing involved in this. You've got to take that. I don't know if you know, it's 0, 0. 0 does not exist perceptually. I've gone through the laws of contradiction and the logic, and the way of negation, and can this possibly exist? This doesn't exist. This only exists like Santa Claus. It only exists if you believe it. Yeah? It's only believe if you believe it. And the only way you can do that is with a leap of faith. And reason has nothing to do with faith.